There is someone in your life who is magnetic, who walks into a room and changes it, who makes you feel when they talk to you that you are the only person worth talking to, who is brilliant and driven, and slightly larger than the world they move through. You admire them. You may love them. You have definitely, at some point, wanted to be more like them. This video is about what they actually are, and why the admiration you feel is not an accident. Psychology identifies a cluster of 3 personality traits that appear together with unusual frequency in people who achieve significant power, status, or influence. The cluster is called the dark triad. The 3 traits are narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Individually, each trait produces specific and identifiable patterns of behavior. Together, they produce something the research describes with striking consistency: a person who is extraordinarily effective at acquiring what they want from other people, and extraordinarily indifferent to what that acquisition costs those people. The reason these traits cluster together is not coincidence. Each trait compensates for the weaknesses of the others. Narcissism provides the drive and the performance, the charisma, the vision, the absolute certainty that produces followers. Psychopathy provides the emotional detachment, the ability to make decisions that would paralyze a person with a functioning conscience. Machiavellianism provides the strategic intelligence, the long-term planning, the patience, the willingness to sacrifice short-term ethics for long-term positioning. Together, they form a system optimized for one purpose: winning at any cost to anyone. Narcissism in the clinical sense is not vanity. It is a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, an insatiable need for admiration, and a fundamental absence of empathy. The narcissist does not fail to consider other people's feelings because they are selfish in the ordinary sense. They fail to consider other people's feelings because other people's feelings are not fully real to them. Other people exist as instruments, as mirrors that reflect the narcissist's greatness back at them, or as obstacles to be removed. The grandiosity is not confidence. It is a structural defense against a self-image so fragile that any challenge to it is experienced as an existential threat. This is why narcissists respond to criticism with disproportionate rage. They are not overreacting. They are defending something that feels, to them, like survival. Psychopathy is the most misunderstood of the 3 traits. Popular culture presents psychopaths as violent and visibly dangerous. The research presents something more unsettling. Most psychopaths are not violent. Most are highly functional, professionally successful, and socially skilled. What defines psychopathy is not violence, but the absence of the emotional experience that makes harm feel costly. Guilt, remorse, fear, anxiety about consequences. A psychopath can understand intellectually that an action will harm another person. They simply do not feel that harm as a reason not to act. The moral break that most people experience as an emotional sensation, the discomfort of causing pain, is absent. Not broken, absent. It was never there. Machiavellianism, named for the Renaissance political philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli, describes a specific orientation toward other people and power. The Machiavellian individual views human relationships primarily as strategic resources, alliances to be formed, maintained, and dissolved based on their utility. They are patient in a way that most people are not, willing to invest years in the construction of a position that will eventually yield an advantage. They are skilled at identifying what other people need and providing exactly enough of it to ensure compliance. And they experience no dissonance between their public presentation and their private calculation. The gap between what they appear to be and what they are does not trouble them. It is the tool. In 2003, a 19-year-old named Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford and founded a blood testing company called Theranos. She told investors, regulators, and patients that her technology could run hundreds of diagnostic tests from a single drop of blood. The technology did not work. It had never worked. Holmes knew it had never worked. She raised $900 million from investors. She was valued by Forbes at $4.5 billion. Patients received false diagnostic results that affected their medical decisions. She was convicted of fraud in 2022. What the Holmes case documents with forensic precision is clinical narcissism in operation. Former employees described a consistent pattern. Holmes's vision was presented not as a goal, but as a reality that already existed. Employees who raised technical concerns were not engaged with. They were dismissed, sidelined, or fired. The challenge to the vision was experienced not as useful feedback, but as an attack on something that felt existential. Holmes wore the same black turtleneck every day. She lowered her voice to a register she did not naturally speak in. She constructed a persona of such specificity and consistency that investors and journalists accepted it as reality. The persona was more real to her than the technology, because for a narcissist, the performance of greatness and the reality of greatness are not experienced as different things. She was not lying in the way most people lie, consciously choosing fiction over fact. She had constructed a reality in which her vision was true, and she defended it with the specific ferocity of someone defending not a fraud, but a self. In 2008, Bernie Madoff confessed to running the largest Ponzi scheme in history. $65 billion, over 40 years, thousands of victims. In prison interviews conducted after his conviction, Madoff described his fraud with a quality that the interviewers consistently noted and struggled to characterize. He was not remorseful in any recognizable sense. He was not proud in any recognizable sense. He discussed 40 years of systematic theft from thousands of people, with the flat, analytical effect of someone describing a business problem that had been resolved. He expressed more apparent distress about the disruption to his reputation than about the destruction of his victims' lives. This is not callousness in the ordinary sense. It is the documented presentation of subclinical psychopathy, the absence of the emotional response that would make the harm feel real. Madoff could calculate the harm. He could describe it accurately. He could not feel it as harm, and without the felt experience of harm, the moral weight of the action simply does not exist. This is the most important thing to understand about psychopathy. It is not that the psychopath chooses not to care. It is that caring is not available to them as an experience. The mechanism that converts understanding into feeling is absent. You cannot appeal to a conscience that generates no signal. Robert Maxwell was a British media mogul who built a publishing and communications empire across 4 decades through a combination of brilliance, charm, and systematic strategic deception. He looted his own employees' pension funds of £460 million. He maintained relationships simultaneously with presidents, prime ministers, and intelligence services across multiple countries. He was investigated for fraud repeatedly across his career, and each time emerged with his public reputation either intact or enhanced. Former colleagues and political figures who dealt with him over decades consistently described the same experience. Maxwell made you feel that your interests and his were identical, that supporting him was the same as supporting yourself. He was extraordinarily patient, willing to absorb short-term losses and public humiliations that would have destroyed a less strategically oriented person. He held grudges across decades and settled them at moments of maximum advantage. He maintained such a complex web of overlapping obligations and mutual dependencies that by the time any single relationship became problematic, he had already constructed the replacement. This is Machiavellianism at its most complete, not manipulation in the reactive sense. Architecture, the deliberate construction of a social and institutional environment in which your position is so embedded that removing you destabilizes everything around you. The research on the origins of dark triad traits is more complicated and more important than most popular accounts suggest. These traits are not purely genetic. They are not purely environmental. They exist at the intersection of biological predisposition and early developmental experience. Narcissism most commonly develops in one of 2 childhood environments. Either excessive idealization. The child is told repeatedly that they are exceptional, that ordinary rules do not apply to them, that they are destined for greatness, which produces a self-image so inflated it cannot accommodate the reality of limitation. Or its opposite, chronic emotional neglect, which produces the same grandiose defense as a compensation for a self-image, so damaged it cannot be faced directly. 2 different origins, One presentation. Psychopathy has a stronger genetic component than the other two traits. Brain imaging studies show consistent structural differences in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex of individuals with psychopathic traits, the regions responsible for fear response and moral emotion. But even psychopathy is not destiny. Research on children with callous unemotional traits, the early presentation of psychopathic features, shows that warm, consistent, non-punitive parenting significantly reduces the likelihood of those traits developing into clinical psychopathy in adulthood. The biology creates a vulnerability. The environment determines whether that vulnerability becomes a disorder. Machiavellianism develops most commonly in environments where trust was unreliable, where the people who were supposed to be safe were not consistently safe, where strategic calculation of other people's intentions became necessary for self-protection. The Machiavellian child learned that relationships are transactions because in their early environment they were. The strategy that kept them safe became the strategy they applied to everything. Here is the practical knowledge. Dark triad individuals are not easy to identify because the traits that make them dangerous are the same traits that make them magnetic. But there are patterns. With narcissism, watch what happens when they are not the center. In a conversation that is not about them, do they engage with genuine interest, or do they redirect? After a significant event in your life, do they respond to your experience, or do they return to their own? In conflict, do they hear your perspective, or do they defend against it as if it were an attack? The tell is not the performance of confidence. The tell is the inability to sustain genuine interest in anyone else's reality. With psychopathy, watch how they talk about people who can no longer serve them. Former friends, old colleagues, past partners. The psychopath does not speak of these people with residual warmth or even residual anger. They speak of them with the flat neutrality of someone describing furniture they no longer own. People who were once apparently important are simply nothing. That flatness is the signal. You are watching what you will become when your utility ends. With Machiavellianism, watch the gap between what they say and what they do across time. Not in moments of stress. Anyone can be inconsistent under pressure. Across years, does their behavior consistently match their stated values? Or do you notice, looking back, that the values shifted to match the position, that the principles were always, somehow, aligned with the advantage? The Machiavellian is a long game player. Their tells only become visible across a timeline. One final thing. The dark triad traits exist on a spectrum. Most people have some degree of all three. The research shows that moderate levels of these traits are associated with professional success, leadership effectiveness, and social influence. The question is not whether the traits are present. The question is whether the person in whom they are present retains the capacity for genuine connection, genuine remorse, and genuine interest in other people's well-being. If those capacities are present, the traits can be held in balance. If those capacities are absent, if you cannot find them, cannot provoke them, cannot reach them no matter what you offer, then you are not dealing with someone who is ambitious and driven. You are dealing with something else entirely. And the most important decision you will make is whether to stay close enough to find out what that costs.